Happy Tuesday and welcome to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Todd Hansen to the Wolff Den. Todd, how's everything going today?
Hey man, everything's going really good. Really good. Good day.
Yeah, every day. Yesterday's guest was a real inspiration. Every day is a good day, and we got to just find a way to make it that way. For those in the audience who don't know who you are, just give us a quick introduction about yourself and what you do.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'm Todd Hansen. Currently, I am the executive director of Artist Rescue Trust, which was a nonprofit I started with a couple other friends in March of 2020, kind of right when the pandemic started to set in pretty hard. And, lots of our friends in the arts, musicians, visual artists, filmmakers, kind of the broad spectrum of people were losing gigs, tours were shutting down. Basically, as we know, any in-person events went away really quick. And so a lot of people were going to get hit with some pretty big financial issues. So we started a nonprofit to try to figure out how to help them in a really simple way. So we kind of came up with this idea that it'd be cool to offer people $500 a month for 3 months who qualify. That was the simple idea. So we went out and, at a time when a lot of really good people were supporting a lot of old and new causes, we raised a little bit of money and ended up giving it all away. And in the first few months, and then we just kind of decided what should we do next. Backstory on Artist Rescue Trust too is, my background is in the arts. I worked at South by Southwest for about a decade, heading up the conference side of things. So we were kind of at ground zero in 2020 for kind of being one of the first big events to be canceled by the city of Austin, but then kind of also seeing this huge infrastructure of the arts start to figure out how they were going to survive for a lot of them, and kind of seeing the behind the scenes of that. So that was what led to kind of the creation of Artist Rescue Trust.
And what's the next step for Artist Rescue Trust? Is there another round? Is it the money that's raised going to be used differently, or is it going to be a lot of the same?
Yeah, so we're at a really kind of cool and also interesting point. We, in November of last year, we found out that we got a $300,000 grant from a place called Grant for the Web, which is kind of this really cool idea. It's this giant fund. It's like $100 million fund. It's a multi-year thing, I guess. And they're giving out grants to projects and ideas that they feel can help further kind of their key initiative, which is, it's called web monetization, which the premise here is that Grant for the Web's goal is to figure out a way to get the web off bad data privacy practices and advertising as the main kind of revenue models, and find ways to use this technology called web monetization, which is essentially streaming micropayments for people's attention directly to the people and platforms and publishers that are creating and making content, and kind of creating getting the web off the bad practices and try to move it to maybe a little bit of a different model. So it was great. They kind of saw us as a really cool channel to the arts and to all sorts of creative communities who they really wanted to know about this. So they gave us $300,000. We got to give away 150,000 of it. Right now, actually within the last week, we've been notifying kind of the grant winners of them receiving this money. And so it's just been a really cool time to help people. So right now, that's kind of a current iteration. Once this project is over, we're just kind of sitting back a little bit and figuring out what does Artist Rescue Trust look like from here, because we were so pandemic focused. Now it's kind of like, what's the evolution look like? So yeah, lots to do.
That's 100 people, 500 bucks. Is that my math right there?
Yeah, it's 100 people. They'll get $500 a month for 3 months. And we don't ask them to, with this current grant, they have to do a little bit of, go through kind of this tutorial program to learn about web monetization and just see if it makes sense to incorporate into like their online world. if they have like a YouTube channel or a website that they publish their work on, things like that. But to let them know about that, and yeah, then it's really just kind of up to them how they want to use the money. We kind of saw it as a universal basic income kind of model, you know.
Yeah. How many people applied for it?
We had, I believe we had about 4,000 plus people apply. We made a really big effort to reach out to a lot of underrepresented and underserved communities, especially folks who may not have a lot of access to, let's say, like broadband technology, and maybe even computers for that matter, to let them know. So we got to be in front of a lot of really good people doing a lot of really good work in those spaces too. So that was really fun, and that brought in a lot of applicants as well. So yeah. The response was good. I thought it would be maybe even a lot bigger, but you know, I think it was maybe just a timing thing of when we finally opened up the application. If it had been maybe a little bit earlier during the pandemic, I feel like we would have gotten a huge tidal wave. But still, the need is great, and it's not going to go anyway anytime soon.
What do you suspect they're going to use it for? Because it's an awesome thing to do, but it's also a very short-term thing to do. And then in a lot of cases, they're right back to the same problem they had, but they have a little bit more. So I'm not dismissing. I'm just saying, saying in a longer term point of view, what's out there for these people to do? I know there's some government help, but I see a lot of people hiring, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when we kind of came up with the idea, we really just wanted to give what we thought was, you know, enough money per month to like cover a grocery bill or half of groceries, or keep their studio space afloat, or buy supplies, or just essentially like buy time. Because nobody at the time when we came up with this, we didn't know how long things were going to last, but we knew people's worlds got shut down really fast, right? So longer term for a lot of these people, I mean, there's so many different grant giving bodies out there. I mean, I was new to this space when we started this, so I had a pretty big learning curve. But you know, COVID created the opportunity for a lot of these foundations and smaller nonprofits to kind of pop up, and they're still popping up all over, especially within music. You know, that need is still great as touring is just starting to kind of come back, especially for the smaller acts and the smaller venues. The folks at NEVA have been really good at trying to work with the government to try to get a lot of financial support to keep these venues afloat. As an individual, the thing that we ran into, and one of the things that people really liked about us, especially kind of other foundations that have come to us to talk about what we do, is that a lot of places can't do this kind of direct funding model. They kind of have, probably aren't using the right words here, but they have kind of written in their bylaws or whatever with their board of directors that they can't just directly fund artists. We don't ask anybody to do anything other than to apply, and if they meet the eligibility requirements, we do basically a lottery system to pick who gets funded. So if you're eligible, we basically just pick at random who will receive another grant, and then that's it. So we've found that this model is unique and powerful, and at the end of the day, hopefully people are finding ways to make ends meet. We're just kind of hopefully a little bit of a cushion. Like one person who got back to me today that just found out that he got a grant from us, it was like, this is absolutely right on time. Like the plumbing broke in my bathroom and water's everywhere. And, he listed off 2 or 3 other things that literally the timing was just perfect. And, and we're going to try to get him his money as fast as possible, because he's got a lot of needs, and those weren't even art related, but it's going to inhibit him from maybe, paying his practice space rent or, buying some gear or something. So.
No, it's not a small amount of money. It's also not,
right,
them on the track, but it's a good start, and it's better than what they've had. Andrew Yang, I think, was during the presidential elections. It's like, hey, we need to give everyone X amount of dollars per month for like a year or so, and and even that might not. But obviously, you need to have funds and backing of it. So that's easier said than done. Who have been? So you mentioned Neva, who I know raised a lot of money, and then there was a Save Our Stages Act who got some money. I hear it's finally starting to get pushed out. What other organizations were quick to step up, or any individuals? You don't have to really name names, but like, how did that come to you outside of the grant?
Well, I mean, just for me, the one thing that I noticed, yes, to point about NEVA, which is really great. It looks like finally the funds are starting to thaw out a little bit on the government side, and that help is getting to venues, which is great. I mean, the thing that I saw kind of right when the pandemic hit in March, in April, and in May of 2020, there were just so many things popping up, and email lists coming out, and resource pages being floated around. Like, once we kind of entered into this space, it actually got to the point where it was so confusing that somebody, which we didn't have the opportunity to do, should have stepped in, and maybe they did, and just started to like aggregate a lot of this stuff in a much more organized way. Because really, at the end of the day, what happened was it started to be really hard to find some of this stuff. People would pass around links. People would, you'd in 20 different Slack groups and email threads, and so many, so that I can't remember a lot of the names of them. But it really could have been organized in a better way. The one thing we did find is how many of them actually were out there, because we asked on our application, where else have you applied? And it didn't really go into the calculus of who got picked, obviously, or any eligibility kind of stuff. But I mean, just lists and lists and lists. People spent, I don't even know how many hours probably applying for all sorts of resources. It was just crazy. It was good that it was out there, but when you're hustling just to make ends meet, that's a lot of work.
It's I know I've had to do, back in the day with unemployment and stuff. Sometimes it's just really, they had this thing where it just kind of went into your thing, but you got to start filling out and remember, and then the thing goes down because everyone's trying to access it.
Oh yeah.
One of the good things about what you guys did is it's money that doesn't have to be repaid. There was a lot of stuff out there that was loan based, and I didn't need a loan, because if I get $20,000, I got to pay $20,000. Who knows how long that's going to take? Even at a if it's non-interest, I guess, I don't know. It'd have to be further out, because then you're putting yourself in a much more precarious situation if it doesn't pan out for you. So having that money and being able to not have to worry about repaying it, like you said, a bill, it could, maybe it gives you an opportunity to buy something for your business, or that you need to get a gig or to make revenue on. So that's one of the really good things. And then you have people who are, look, I don't know who's to judge here, but people who need it more than others. I don't know. That's a tough thing to say. I mean, it's all relative, right? I mean, there are people who do have money or who have stuff that's successful that needed something and some kind of help. But it's interesting how they determine who is that. Do you know someone? A lot of that is going to be determined on who gets what. So now you got all these people out there who need to find work, moving time, full time, part time. Do you know Don Orris from Sapphire Tickets? Had him on the show. He and Jason Varnish from Box Office Manners, Bomb Advisors. They started something called LAST, Live Entertainment Staffing Services. I should connect you guys, because you probably have a nice list of people who need to find work, and they are bridging people who are looking for work. So it's kind of to help the the entertainment industry. And there's a lot of that coming together in the industries, the sports industries separate, and the live music and entertainment. Why do you think it was such a struggle for the government to kind of step in and say, yes, they need it? And that's such a huge part of who we are. I mean, it's hard to argue against that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And it's a great question for, to think about. And it's a conversation I've had with a lot of people, because when you're working in the space, whether that's entertainment, whether that's arts entertainment, live entertainment, events, but especially in the arts, that essentially helps us define who we are as people and inspire us to be better than we can be, and all those wonderful things. I just don't think that I don't think people really recognized that as important in the near term. I'm not going to dive into politics or anything like that, but I mean, actions speak louder than words. You have other countries that, I forget who if it was France or Germany or whoever, said, or I think, yeah, they said, set aside 1.5 billion or something like that, and just propped up the entire arts community. It's like, we're not going to let this sink. There was no will for that on this side. I mean, even, to drop back into like talking about NEVA's efforts, they had a full head of steam, and it's not their fault. It's just, once everything got passed, it still hasn't really rolled out. And that just like that amount of work, that amount of effort, that rallying and that community building just to get something on the table and to finally get it approved. And now we're over a year into this thing, and the venues are starting to come back online, but they've got back bills, they've got who I can't even imagine, you know what I mean? And why didn't it happen in the United States? Government leadership is not keen on jumping in when they needed to jump in as fast as they needed to jump in. Why? I don't know, but saw some true colors on that one.
Yeah. Without getting into like the weeds of politics, is the arts and entertainment, they used to call it liberal arts in school, right? So is it because it's, do you think it has to do with that? I don't know. I have no idea. It's hard. It's just hard to imagine. But on the other side of it, some people can think, well, some of these companies are just tremendous. Like, talk about a Live Nation, for example. Like they lost money. I think they basically didn't earn money and didn't lose it. So there's a way you can look at it, right? And like, they didn't lose $3 billion. They just didn't earn $3 billion. But the problem is that the people who get hurt are the employees and all the lower people who aren't really making the lion's share of that money. So how do you get help to those people instead of just giving it to Live Nation, who's most likely not going to just trickle that down? Now, there were some companies who said, look, everything gets down, but then there was other companies who got stuff, and then they started letting people go, and then they started, you could see the type of, and there was no consequence for it.
Right.
And that was even in the arts and entertainment. It was in airlines and all this other stuff. So it's hard. First of all, when you have a lot of money, a lot of stuff can happen, right? It's just, right. But it's hard to figure out who gets it, how are you going to implement it, how are you going to, I guess, monitor it. I don't know. We're seeing some of the same stuff with the NIL stuff going on in sports, but you can't imagine life without like live events like sports and music and shows. You can't. I mean, you start thinking about the things that the government or your people support, and there's just stuff I could do without, but there's just that you couldn't. I couldn't imagine life without it. I'm sure, you and I are different in that. Maybe we're not the average person because it's such a big part of our life, but right. I don't know, judging by everything I see out there, it would be very hard to imagine life without it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because I think the one thing that we saw through the pandemic, obviously, like the enhanced unemployment benefits, the government moving in hard to essentially provide some semblance of a bigger and broader social safety net, and it's pure speculation here, but go back to your point about larger companies, and not to name names or whatever, but that have pretty healthy balance sheets, they're, at the end of the day, they don't know what's going to happen. But then, if you shed a bunch of employees because, maybe it just makes sense to do it and use crisis as an opportunity to, rebalance what your company looks like or whatever, they know that they're going to get taken care of to some degree by the government, and maybe they don't feel that it's their responsibility to do anymore. Or there are the companies that are great and totally took care of their employees, and or the countries that, paid everybody who got furloughed or laid off 3/4 of their salary for an entire year. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to tackle the problem, the reasons why certain things happen and which way or the other. It's, we can only speculate, right? Yeah. But, it's, the arts, especially in music, but obviously others, is always battling with, if you can't get out and play your shows, if you can't get out and sell your merch, if you can't be there in person playing for people, that's where you're going to make your money. And more often than not, you're doing it without health insurance. You don't have a 401k, you don't, or maybe you do, but a big strata of working and touring musicians are grinding it out, year over year, because it's what they love to do. And there's nothing, if they don't stop, if they stop, then they have to get a regular job. If they get super sick on the road, they could rack up massive medical bills. I mean, personally, I feel like there should be an easier and better kind of situation and system for everybody, so they don't, when the world pulls the rug out from underneath your feet, and you have some place to land, you know what I mean? Because I think we're getting into some really dangerous territory, at least in the United States, on that stuff. I don't know. It's tricky.
I thought I read somewhere like 70 to 75% of all revenue is earned through touring. So when touring shuts down, that becomes a difficult thing. And one of the positives when everything's rolling is that music is year round and all over the place and touring. Right. But when something like that happens, chaos ensues, right? You cancel, you push back, you postpone, the semantics of postponing and canceling and pushing back and then pushing back again and then pushing back again and then doing it here. And then you're usually in the summer, but now you did it the winter. Do you go back to the summer? Do you change it back to that's a lot of logistics to try and figure out. So the event industry was really hampered by that. And I gotta say, in the history of my lifetime, COVID is going to be the largest scapegoat that we've ever known. Like everything is going to, roll under the guise of COVID, right? This was it. Like COVID's why we don't do this. And I think really things were really headed towards the direction in our industry, and COVID just kind of accelerated it. Like the amount of technology, 10 years in like a year and a half, and that's good because people were able to live stream and do some stuff. It's also bad because it's not perfected. And then a lot of people want to jump in on this, and I don't know how sustainable all of that is. So you see companies that jump in and spend money to do something, and then they're not there. What did you see that was really positive in the community in the last year about, helping artists to, aside from just giving them money, helping artists to find a way to kind of either stay engaged with their audience or earn some money?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of, what we saw were people coming to us asking us, what other resources were out there, or what other, how we could point them in the direction of like a platform like Stage It, right? And which live streaming concerts, right? Like there was a handful of new ones that kind of popped up and started making things happen and started to create communities around that, which community equals audience equals people, paying $5 to watch a live stream of like a solo show or something like that. So I think that what happened in the community is people got really creative and found a lot of ingenuity, and like, how are they going to reach their whatever fan base or community that they have, and hopefully grow it and see what kind of support that those people that followed their music or their art would give them, and kind of more of a reliance that if they weren't super tech savvy, that they had to like kind of quickly tool up and figure out where they needed to be and how they needed to try to figure out a way to generate some kind of income from that. So, I think if you found just a lot of people willing to help each other out, or, come together and, use, if X act had a 10,000 follower fan base, they were much more willing to help out the 5,000 follower fan base, you know what I mean? Or and say, hey, you need to go see this show. These guys are great. And there was just a lot. It's always been a good community, but I think you even saw it cross genre too, like metal bands promoting folk bands, stuff like that, just because like, hey, the need was big, the need was huge, and everybody was just trying to figure it out because the lights just got turned off. And then that was it. And not only the acts, but all the people that support it, all the people that work in the clubs or work on the tours or whatever, everybody was, was scrambling, and still is, or, everybody's kind of getting back on their feet. But I think the interesting thing that I've seen is a lot of the, mid-size to bigger acts. And I'm thinking like bands that can, do 500 to 1,500 or more seats, or even greater than that, 5,000 or something like that. Like live streaming, whatever they're doing has now become part of it's like another revenue stream if they're able to pull it off for their shows, the shows that they're now starting to do. So, you can buy the ticket to the live stream of their show at the bottom of the hill in San Francisco or whatever. And if they have the gear to be able to set that up and do a simple live stream or something more complex, what you're seeing is now, I think that there's almost, like you said, a lot of things changed that would have taken 5 to 10 years in 1 year. And maybe this idea of, hey, you have to just live stream every show.
Yeah,
it's
good or bad, there's no choice. It's there.
Right.
It's what has to happen. So you have to adapt, which is not easy, especially, everyone was making plans. We're on a weekly call and it's like making plans. And it's like, why are you making all these plans? We have no idea what's going to happen. And it's probably whatever you're doing, planning here is probably not going to be good by the time it's, you're ready to implement it.
Yeah.
One of the things I watched a few live streams. I'm a Patreon subscriber to an artist that I support, and he does a live show every week, and it's great. But there was a lot of content out there that was recorded and lip sync. That's the nature of that. I think it's, for me, I don't know how sustainable that is. But live streaming a live concert, if you geofence it and you can be like, hey, he's not coming here. I think there's definitely some legs for that. Did you guys ever think about putting together an event for Artist Rescue to try and generate some money? Is that still on the table?
We did. We were working with Stage It on an idea. This was a few months ago. And actually it was probably even before we got the grant that we got from Grant for the Web. And we tossed around a bunch of ideas, and something just never really got off the ground. And then we just kind of got deep into the grant once we got the big grant, into that whole process, and that just kind of became the focus. And it's also the fact, kind of like yourself, this is a 1 to 2 person shop. So there's not a lot of there's only so much time in the day or whatever. But we did have kind of grand plans to try to pull off, maybe streaming shows from key cities, with acts from those cities or towns, and trying to rally a few other nonprofits in the same space to be part of it. And then for a certain amount of time during kind of this live stream festival, all donations or all revenues would go to that one nonprofit. But we just ran out of time and didn't iron out all those details. But I think it would have been super cool to do. Yeah. But I think it's interesting too, because it's like outside of the art space. I mean, when I was at South by Southwest and I headed up the conference side of South by Southwest for a number of years. The interesting thing that's happened really fast in that space too is that now the expectation is that there will always be like a virtual component to conferences now, right? That you can attend virtually, and that you're going to have to put money and marshal resources and technology around creating that experience going forward. If South by does it again, who knows? But again, I think it's just like that expectation was set, that access is now kind of baked in, and people are going to expect, events, conferences specifically, probably to continue to do that kind of stuff or whatever.
We're working on some stuff at Ticket Time Machine in the conference space, and probably a 2022 venture, but we're still working on it. I think you got to do it right. It's the same with live streams. You got to do it right because there's got to be value to it, and there's got to be certain things that make it worthwhile. I've gone to some of these conferences, and it's really hard for me to be at my desk and block out a whole day for it. It just is.
Yeah, and that's asking a lot of people to like sit for a full day. I think it's like, I was working with, for a time, I was working in kind of consulting with the folks over at Fortune magazine, and they do a series of small conferences. And I was trying to help them out with one that they were going to do in Singapore, and they were hoping to do it in person, but then it moved to a total virtual situation. And just kind of the data and stuff that we were seeing was, people just kind of, the virtual conference or even event space becomes more of just like a background thing that you kind of pay attention to, or you make it a point to, attend one or two key talks, or, there was a lot of really fun, flashy, like virtual networking rooms, and, all the platforms were trying to figure out and develop ways to try to bring people together. And
that's the important part of a conference, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could just blast content to anyone, but how do you get people in the same room to talk and be able to have conversation? That's the tough one. I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second, because that's what we like to do on the Wolff Den. What about the other side that says, and I'm not saying anyone's saying this, but the opinion of, hey, look, you're an artist, right? You have a skill, and if that skill can't get you the paying job, that's enough. Right, because there's a lot of struggling artists. They just don't have that. Maybe they need to move on to something else, and it's not more of like a passion thing. Like, I love doing this. There's a lot of things I would love to do that I might not be good enough to get that, to that level, and no one's really going to help me and elevate just because of it. So, in general, artists is there's people who are, and they're okay with it. They're okay with, hey, this is who I am. This is the level I am. They're content. They love doing what they're doing. They just need to make a little bit of money.
Right.
And some people who want to, get up to the top and just never can. You don't want to tell anyone to stop chasing their dreams. Right. But that's, everyone faces that choice. Like, if I can't find a job doing what I want, I got to take a job doing something I don't want until I can do that. So it's just, one of those things that, I think other people are going to say, and maybe something that, people who aren't in the arts might be in the back of their mind as they're thinking, hey, what resources am I going to do to help people, right? Am I going to give the artist who wants to tour, or am I going to give it to, cancer research? I don't know, whatever it is. You have to decide where your time, money, and energy goes to.
Yeah, I mean, that's, your point about, at some point it becomes a decision. Right. And I think for whether that's the individual, whether that's the group, like a band or something like that, like at what level, at what point does the pursuit maybe just transform itself from, I'm still going to do my art, but I realize that I need to, whatever the conditions are or whatever in my life that I need to, now maybe step back from trying to push so hard on it and pick up another, not a real job, because art is a real job, but you know what I mean? Like, pick up another gig or try to make some money somewhere else to support. Cause like, maybe I've had a kid, or, my life has changed, or my life has gotten sick and I want to help support them or whatever, and then there are the people who, if you're going to do it full time, are totally happy, continuing to try to gut it out and grow a fan base one fan at a time and stuff. And that's a really hard life. And I respect it intensely. But it wears on you. It can wear you down. I mean, say if you're like touring in a van for 7 to 8 years and try, you know what I mean? And, you know, let's say it's like you're never playing for more than 100 people in every town you go to, but it's just enough that you still, you know, you believe in your work and you believe in your art. And it's like, I'm just going to keep doing this.
I mean, if you,
yeah, that's the drug of it all, right?
Maybe if you went 9 years, that would have been the year that something clicked, a song you wrote. Who knows what it could be?
Yeah. So that's like this huge investment in time, no matter what kind of medium you're practicing art in. Yeah. And, you know, at some point, you know, it's the decision that kind of has to be made. But that's like if you're really full time about it, right? Like if you're a visual artist and you're going to art festivals and art fairs and traveling around the United States and trying to sell your work and trying to get into galleries and trying to hustle and trying to, you know, whatever the process is in the medium that people work in their art, you know, you can push the pedal to the floor and try to make it happen. But it, you know, that's fun in your 20s. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of time.
It's so subjective, and it's like, you know, like I see artists, I see musicians, I see athletes that are, in my opinion, and it's just subjective, but like 10 times better than the people who are making millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
And you see that. Our art is probably the biggest thing. You watch those arts and you're like, that's what's expensive. I'm like, well, I got stuff that I think is 100 times harder to do and cooler, but that's the beauty of art. What's your background? How did you get into music and decide that music is your thing?
Yeah, I mean, I was a musician, I was a drummer, you know, starting when I was a kid. And so just been part of my life forever. And, you know, I played in bands in high school, ended up going to college, playing in bands in college, doing a bit of touring. I've never been on the road for like a year straight in a van, but, you know, done a fair share to know that I've cut my teeth a little bit on that when I was in my 20s, you know, and I ended up starting a small record label in Minneapolis in about 2002, I believe. And I did that with a friend of mine for about 3 or 4 years, kind of at the best and worst time possible, because it was kind of like right before the iTunes store opened, and Napster had already been killing everything, but nobody really had downloads figured out. And like the margins weren't really working out for like a fledgling record label that was putting out bands from Minneapolis. So it's just, you know, it's just been part of my DNA. And then, you know, I ended up moving down to Austin, Texas, and just got involved in the music community down there. Ended up building and running a Couchsurfing site for touring bands called Better Than the Van. And just kind of a cool side project as a way to try to help support touring bands that can't afford it.
I offered my couch. I've never had it done, but I'm a 6-man veteran and Rockboat and Sail Across the Sun. So Rockboat's Sister Hazel's cruise, Sail Across the Sun is Train's cruise, and the community there is just, I mean, these artists are traveling, they're doing home shows, but they're also trying to figure out, you know, and they're just welcome. I would welcome, you know, that I support to come stay in my place if they were gigging. I think it'd be a cool thing to do because it's not being used anyway.
Sure.
So it'd be a cool thing. So that's a pretty cool thing that you. Is that still a big thing online? I know Couchsurfing is a big thing, but the model of it with like an Airbnb type thing, is that more?
I don't know. I mean, I know the old school's Couchsurfing site and those guys. I think that thing is still running. I mean, I don't know, actually. It's been a long time since I've slept on a floor. So, you know, but it was, you know, I'm in the same boat as you, and I think that's what kind of inspired it. Because when I was living in Minneapolis, I was renting this like 5-bedroom house that was falling apart in uptown Minneapolis. We had I don't know how many roommates, probably like 6 or 7, but the whole upstairs, the 3rd floor was just this big open room with like 2 bedrooms, but just big floor space or whatever. So we were in a pretty consistent way, like a place where bands could come in and drop in for a night right after a show, because we were just right outside of downtown. and they could get to us really, really quick, and we'd be at their shows anyway. There's this cool all ages club in Minneapolis for a few years called the Foxfire, and so tons of bands in their very early days, came through there from like At the Drive-In and Death Cab for Cutie, just a bunch of lots of indie bands or whatever. There was a really good flow, and then you had like First Avenue, legendary club that everybody played at. I don't think those people generally, if they were headlining there, could afford a hotel room, so they weren't staying with us. But
First Avenue trading card. I bought Neva was selling fantasy for cards, trading cards, and I bought a box of cards and I bought some packs, so I opened them just to help support. But I think I gotta have a First Avenue trading card. What's your favorite music venue in Austin?
Favorite one in Austin? Well, that's a good question. Obviously, I like the Mohawk a lot. Such good shows there, and the space is great. What was the other one? There's a couple of them that have closed. I used to like going to the Parish. I think that closed down, and that was on 6th Street, but upstairs. It's been a while since I've been to some shows. Obviously, COVID stopped that, but even before that, it's sometimes it might be past my bedtime. But there's the beloved Old Emos, which was great.
I love Austin. Some great rooftops.
Yeah.
It gets a little crazy on 6th Street, but some great music just to stand outside. Great food too. You have a favorite barbecue in Austin?
Favorite Mickelwaith. They're over on the east side. Obviously, there's Franklin Barbecue, which is great.
You like a lot of barbecue.
There's a lot of barbecue. There's a lot of barbecue.
La Barbecue, LA. Barbecue.
Oh, La Barbecue. Yeah, actually, I just ate there a few weeks ago. If you want to get out of Austin really far, you can go to Snow's.
Yeah, Salt Lick, right?
Yeah, Salt Lick. So and everybody's got their own style, their own take.
Yeah, we buy Salt Lick seasoning that gets sent here. My friend and I use that a little bit, which is good. And so how'd you get into Southwest? Obviously, you moved to Austin. That's where when you started to work for South by Southwest. What are some favorite moments of South by Southwest? Obviously, one of the biggest conferences at the intersection of music and arts and entertainment and technology. So probably seen a lot of cool things and firsts, introductions, and anything that stands out.
Lots of stuff. I mean, it was almost a decade doing that stuff. So we got to see a lot of really cool people. I mean, probably the highlight was one of the biggest highlights was when we were able to bring in Obama to come do an interview and talk. That was pretty wild. It was really interesting to see how the Secret Service works and how they're able to kind of shut down an entire city at their will, and move, entourages of people around with wild accuracy. So, and obviously just, seeing the president, who I was a big fan of, speak and just be close to that energy was great. There's a lot of really cool and interesting things that just kind of happen behind the scenes that you just kind of privy to, and you get to see kind of cool interactions happen with, business people like obviously like Elon Musk or something like that. But then, actors, actresses, musicians, kind of this wild melting pot of really talented people that generally sometimes wouldn't have had the opportunity to be in the same room with each other, or in the same backstage space. So you end up seeing people who are fans of each other finally get to meet each other, right? And to you, they're, this actor on this HBO show, or they're a business icon, or they're an academic intellectual or whatever. And then, backstage they cross paths because they're being ferried to their next session or whatever. And then you get the opportunity to help make some of those connections too. Because, in the role at South by Southwest, you just end up sometimes being conduit for that kind of stuff to happen and connecting teams of people. So lots of really cool, exciting stuff. Weird, fun challenges of having to figure out how to find Snoop Dogg a throne that he can sit on for an event that he was doing after his session, and how do you find one of those in 2 hours in the middle of Austin? Just all sorts of fun, challenging stuff. It was a really good time. Takes a lot of energy though.
My brother worked for Showtime, and I forget where he was at, but he was in charge of taking care of Stifler's mom, Jennifer Coolidge. It was at the time when he was doing it. It was just kind of like just happening. What's your music? What did you grow up with a certain music? Has it changed? What are you listening to now?
Well, like any good person at this point in my life, my music tastes are pretty much all over the place. So, it's always trying to seek out something new. I mean, I think, growing up, I was, let's date myself here. When I was, like in the mid to late 80s, I was into, like anybody would be into, I was into like U2, and I was into that, all the worlds around that, right? And then you go to college and you start exploring all the other music that you didn't have access to or didn't know about. Especially at a time when, like, pre-internet, like, you knew what was right in front of you. You know what I mean? And within your friend circle. And then, finally you start watching like 120 Minutes on MTV, and you start seeing amazing bands that you want to find out more about, and you get your record store to find their CDs and bring them in and blah, blah, blah. So it just starts to evolve. I still, everything from hardcore bands to jazz to, anything that just truly interests me, that gets my attention, I love listening to. And it just, at that point, I think it's hard to draw out names, because it's just kind of so much that I just kind of listen to in the background. And that's probably the biggest benefit of streaming platforms, is you can just kind of get into deep worlds that you didn't know anything about.
Yeah, I like a lot of music from a lot of people. One of my favorites now, AJR. I'm really liking what they're doing. And I listen to a lot of country, Dua Lipa and Ava Max, kind of that pop. This Jax, and Jax, he's got some. There's a song called '90s Kid.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of nostalgia songs coming out. It's like there's a song called John Hughes, Not a John Hughes Movie.
Nice.
Anyway, there's a lot. I love all that stuff. I saw Brad Paisley on Saturday. That was my first concert back. Have you been to a show, or do you have anything coming up?
Yeah. What are we going to go see? We're going to go see Wilco, but that's going to be outside, I think. And then, we're going to go see David Sedaris. He's not a musician, he's an author, but we're going to go to his show, and that's going to be indoor. But I haven't been to like a club show or anything really recently. Just haven't had time.
What do you know of a show that you missed because of COVID that got canceled? Like, was there something that really sticks out? Like, oh my God, I can't believe I can't go see that.
I think the as a whole, I think the thing that I missed seeing in general was like the music festival side of South by Southwest in 2020, just because, kind of when our day was over with the conference stuff, or went late into the night, you could go out and, do what you could do to like jump from show to show to show. And so you could just kind of see so much music, have maybe a couple bands you really wanted to see, but, the nature of that event, South by Southwest, was just deep diversity in the kind of music you could be exposed to. And so that I missed out on that kind of like joy of exploration and discovery, I guess you could say. So
is there an artist that you can name that most people don't know that we can introduce our audience to?
I don't know.
Nothing.
It's a scary one to answer, because it's I don't think so. I think as my tastes have evolved. There's, I think, a lot of the music that I'm into or listen to repeatedly, a lot of people already know, though I did stumble upon, there's a phase of my life where I was into jam bands, but that I stumbled upon this band Goose, who did like a cover of a Vampire Weekend song, I think, and they've been around for years and they're doing great or whatever, but that's the thing that made me discover them.
Yeah, I always try and find the new bands that are kind of similar, and sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's harder than you think. You hear one song from this person, and then you're like, all right, let me listen to the rest of this stuff, but it doesn't kind of hit you the same, and now you're just trying to find something else. Is there a bucket list venue or music festival that you haven't been to that you'd like to see?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been to really a European music festival, so I'd like to go to like Glastonbury or, before I'm too old to get out to one of the larger ones on that side of the world for sure. Yeah. I think that would be a lot of fun just to see it. I've just watched so many performances over the years on that. It just seems like a crazy sea of people. I mean, just having the opportunity to go to ACL every year in Austin, that's pretty giant thing. And it's you kind of get spoiled when you kind of have that in your backyard every year.
Yeah, there's something called Nova Festival. I think it's in Austria. Mm. And they had Linkin Park, Green Day, Blink-182, and Simple Plan. And I was like, I got to go to this thing. And I didn't end up getting to go. And they usually have a pretty good lineup, but that lineup for me is like,
right.
That would have been a sick lineup for me. Off topic here, is Brittany Spears going to be okay? Do you know what the hell? What's going on with Brittany?
What's going on? Free Brittany. Who knows? You can't help but follow it a little bit. I guess she's got a new hot lawyer, high profile lawyer to try to untangle whatever world she's been in. I mean, that story is crazy at the end of the day. Like, it's just like no control over her life whatsoever. I had no idea. So it's amazing that kind of thing can even happen and continue on for so long. And that's what just blows my mind.
Yeah, artists have to be careful, but on the other hand, they're afforded things that they wouldn't have been able to, and sometimes you gotta know how much to give up to get that stuff. It's a difficult thing, and there's agents in general and everything, sports, entertainment, music, a lot of people trying to take advantage of someone. Yeah. A lot of people helping people get to where they could get to that point. And so I don't know, it's sort of like a catch-22. You have to, as long as someone's honest about it, they saw a contract, they had hopefully people looking at these contracts.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. That's how some of the things, and every state is different too. I mean, there's some states that just have really weird laws and that just favor the wrong people. And you're like, how is that even a thing?
Yeah.
A random thing in Florida, I'll tell you, is I told my friend this. If you're married, right, and your wife cheats on you,
yeah,
is pregnant, technically that baby is yours. This is in Florida. It's a true story.
Really?
That's crazy. It's crazy. And
wow.
Obviously it's happened before. And I don't know. It's just nuts. Anyway, Florida for you. A lot of crazy stuff going on in Florida. What are you passionate about besides music?
What am I passionate about?
Or what's a big part of your life besides music?
Well, I've got 2 kids, so that takes up a good chunk of things. And, they're 9 and 12. So we're at those really cool ages, pre-turning teenager. They're 2 girls, 2, pre-turning teenager, and one who's, still this great little kid. So they take up a lot of really great time, and just kind of like, passionate about, showing them the world, getting them out in Austin, getting them out in Texas, the outdoors, I guess you could say, is a passion. I'm not like a hardcore camper by any means, but, just there's so much to see and do in and around Austin, hiking, biking, all that kind of stuff. I'm also passionate about really just kind of taking it easy too. Really, value my downtime, and try not to, we're in a really cool, we're in a really cool area of Austin, but at the same time, people, you can be surrounded by a lot of people who really oversubscribe their lives to doing a lot of stuff and trying to achieve a lot every single day. And I think that's good. But I think at the same time, like, we kind of oversubscribe ourselves and oversubscribe our children sometimes too. So I think it's like finding that balance. I think the passion around maintaining that balance and making sure that everybody's needs are met is a good thing to do. And then there's all the little dumb hobbies, and I don't think I'm going to start any kind of business anytime soon. I think I still have the entrepreneur bug to a degree, but energy levels for a sustained effort might not necessarily be there right now. So I love trying to get new ideas off the ground too.
We're a memorabilia company, a collectibles. Do you have anything special that you've accumulated in the music world, like an event you went to?
Oh, it's funny. I ran across a box from moving a while back, and I found buried in there this old container, and it's full of like what you have, the old ticket stubs or whatever from shows from like the All Ages Club or from First Avenue or 7th Street Entry or whatever, like stuff going really far back, the old Ticketmaster ones or whatever, or bundles of free tickets that First Avenue would give out as you walked out for the shows for the bands nobody really knew about. Or whatever. So it was cool. It just brought back, like, obviously a ton of really cool memories and things are just like, I completely forgot I went to this show 20 plus years ago. Or like, wow, that band is now on its like 5th reunion tour, stuff like that.
Story you remember from that day, who you were with, tickets, and it could be anything. There's a lot of stuff. I have other things from events, but I'm a memorabilia guy, so I love stuff. A lot of great music movies out there. Was there one that you really liked? Do you have a favorite?
Well, there's I really want to see that one that Questlove just produced and directed about the music festival in Harlem. I'm totally forgetting the name on it. He didn't even know it existed until he started working on it. So I don't feel bad about not knowing that happened, but that's a huge thing. It's like a massive cultural moment that took place over an entire summer, and I really want to watch. Yeah. So I really want to see that and watch those performances. It just looks so good.
Did you watch the Fire Festival one? How that you, right?
Yes, I watched that. Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
The world is filled of people who are trying to take advantage and are easily taken advantage of, and that just shows you the passion that the music fans have, that they just, and what they're willing to do to get their music. It's nuts to me.
Oh, there's that other one that doc that's going to come out about the '99 Woodstock festival, about like just what happened, what went wrong, and like apparently it's a huge cultural deep dive. So that one I'm interested to. I watched all that play out on TV as like a college kid.
Oh, we were going to do it. I thought there was one going to be like 6 years ago. They were going to do that again, and that thing, right? Miley Cyrus was supposed to be there, that one didn't go. It's there's too many hands in the pot that prevents a lot of great things from happening, because everyone needs a piece of it. And I just think, there's got to be a way to the fans lose out. When everyone does the money grab, the fans are the one who lose out, and it's just disappointing to see that. But part of me says I might be okay. Like, you come out surviving. Like, wouldn't it be cool to be at the Fire Festival, to say you were there, and a couple of days
to say you survived?
Yeah, have that experience. I don't know. I would probably take that chance. I wouldn't like to lose all the money that they lost, but who knows? So we'll let you out of here the same way we let everyone else out of the Wolff Den. You can pick one person to meet and hang out with. Anyone in the world. They have to be living. You can't be related to them or have hung out with them before. Who do you want to meet, and what do you want to do? We're doing outreach for all of our guests. It's on a list. We're going to make it happen for as many of them as we can. But I did some outreach yesterday to try and make it happen. Who do you got, and what do you want to do?
Oh my gosh, that's a big question, and I've got 30 seconds to answer it.
You can go a few seconds.
Who would I want to meet? Gosh, man, that's tough.
Doesn't have to be in music. It could be
Yeah. Rick Rubin.
Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
And what do you guys?
I'd like to. I don't know. He just how he produces bands, the way he thinks about things has always been really intriguing to me. And I'd probably just like to, I don't know, hang out at his house, sit on a beach, drink some beers, and have him tell me stories. I wouldn't really need to say anything. It'd be cool.
Yeah. Sounds good. What kind of beer?
Oh man, his choice. Whatever he likes.
He likes beer. He might be a wine guy or
Could be a wine guy. Whatever he wants to do. All as well.
All right. Well, look, Artist Rescue Trust. Go to artistrescue.org. Find him on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. How can people help?
Just come to the website, see what we're all about. If you feel like giving us $1 or $5 or $100, know that it's going into a good cause that is going to continue to find ways to support working artists. Sounds good. Appreciate your time here. We got guests the rest of the week on the Wolff Den. Look forward to seeing what comes next for you guys, and let us know how we can help. Awesome, man. Thanks so much for doing this. This is great. Have a great day.